North Canton Planning Commission meeting. This is January 8th, 2025 at 6:01 p.m. The first item on the agenda is a roll call, please.
Mr. Dalpace?
Here.
Mr. Mahalson?
Here.
Mr. Sarah?
Present.
Mr. LePage?
Here.
Mr. Reed?
Here.
Okay, next on the agenda tonight is a couple administrative items. The first is our election of officers for this year. Hard to believe it's January, but we're back to electing our officers. I don't know if we need any discussion, commission members, or if anyone has a motion.
Can we do a BOGO on the motion, two at a time?
We can do whatever we'd like to do, yes.
I would like to motion to have Mr. Dalpace and Mr. Sarah to retain their positions as chairman and vice chairman.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion from Mr. Mahalson, and we have a second from Mr. LePage. If we could do a roll call, please.
Mr. Dalpace?
I will abstain.
Mr. Mahalson?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. All right, next is establish our 2025 Planning Commission meeting calendar. I think we were planning this, keep the same 6 p.m. start time. And then I don't know if there's any dates that conflict with holidays that might be an issue. But typically the first Wednesday, correct? I don't know if Martin, if you...
It is usually the 4th.
The 4th of July is usually the problem, right?
It's a Friday this year.
Okay.
So we'll have a day in between.
Yeah, okay.
And even if we get any conflicts later in the year, we can certainly move those, but typically we'd be looking at the first Wednesday of the month
Okay.
at 6 p.m.
If any...
I'll make a motion to hold the first Wednesday of each month at 6 p.m.
I will, Mr. Sarah, thank you. I will second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. Mahalson?
Yes.
Mr. Dalpace?
Yes. All right, next on the agenda is our minutes for consideration. This is the submit the December 4th, 2024 meeting minutes for approval.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 4th meeting as submitted.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion from Mr. LePage, second from Mr. Sarah. Roll call, please.
Mr. Mahalson?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Dalpace?
Abstain. All right. Next is our public hearing portion of our meeting tonight. The first item is Ordinance 01-2025. This is an ordinance amending the zoning map of the City of North Canton to reclassify one parcel in the City of North Canton in accordance with the amendment procedure set forth in Chapter 1182 of the Planning and Zoning Code from its existing classification to Main Street North. I believe this came from the city, so I'm not sure who is presenting this tonight.
Would the commission prefer I stay here or go to the podium?
I don't think we have. I think you can stay there. It's totally
Okay,
fine.
I'll be just as official here then.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Planning Commission members. My name's Jason Segedy. I'm with City of North Canton Economic Development at 145 North Main Street, North Canton, Ohio, 44720. Yeah, this proposal came from the city administration. This is a one parcel in a block of 5 parcels owned by the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation. 4 of the parcels with frontage on Main Street are already zoned Main Street North. This parcel, which is addressed on 11th Street Northwest, is the one parcel of the 5 that is zoned as single-family residential R50. And so the requested zoning amendment is to rezone the property to Main Street North to make it consistent with the other 4 properties. Currently, the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation, we put out a request for proposals for redevelopment of all 5 of the parcels. And so the rationale behind the zoning change is there's a couple different reasons. We feel like it will make this property consistent with the zoning of the other 4 parcels. It would remove some uncertainty from prospective purchasers of the property to have the zoning for all 5 parcels be consistent. We do feel it's compatible with the land use in the Main Street corridor, which is a commercial zoning category, and we feel like it would set a future purchaser up for success by having all 5 parcels with the same zoning category. As far as the compliance with the master plan, 2 of the goals of the city's master plan are both for strategic land banking, which is the reason these properties were acquired by the Community Improvement Corporation to begin with. And another goal of the master plan is to reutilize underutilized residential properties in the Main Street corridor. So those are our reasons for coming before you with the petition for the rezoning. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, if you have any questions, feel free at this
So
time.
this would rezone from residential to GBB.
Actually to Main Street North, but that's a similar zoning category to the general business, correct?
Okay. Because right now it's currently residential.
Currently R50, correct.
Would they remain separate properties, or would that go through a lot consolidation to single?
That's a great question. In the request for proposals, we propose selling the properties as a block, but when we do get proposals, I think that the CIC would take a look at each proposal individually, and it's possible a prospective buyer might want to subdivide or combine, but right now they are still separate parcels until the time of the proposal and come to some agreement with the purchaser.
Okay.
Ben Young here. Our city's ideal scenario would be a single buyer who consolidates and performs one development.
Correct.
So what's the total acreage?
The total acreage for all the properties is about 1.42 acres, I believe.
Any other questions from commission members at this time? Okay. At this point, we would open this up to the public audience to speak. Just a reminder for anybody in the audience, if you haven't been here before, if you could, make your way to the podium, state your name and your address. And then if we could keep your time to about 5 minutes for your initial thoughts and discussion, that'd be great. And then we can hopefully answer any questions you may have. So if anyone from the public would like to speak at this time, feel free.
All right, very good. Thanks for allowing me to have this time with you this evening. Appreciate it. Just a quick bio, so you know who I am. My name's Dan Hanning. My wife, Gina, and I have been residents in North Canton for 20 years. We live on 215 Woodrow Street Northwest, and we're grateful for the services that the City of North Canton provides, not the least of which 3 of my daughters graduated from Hoover High School, and I'm very proud of that fact and very grateful, so we're thankful. And my wife also is a tutor, teacher aide at Northwood Primary, so we have an investment in the community. We lived here, like I said, for 20 years, and we appreciate what the city has provided for us in terms of their services. I've read both sections of the proposal. We were sent a letter that I received Monday. When I got home from work Monday, my wife said, oh, there's a letter from City Hall. And I read it, and I thought, wow, that's coming a little late in the game here. I didn't know anything about what was happening in terms of this zoning proposal. And the next day I had to go to work, so I really had no time to look it over and carefully consider what the implications of this rezoning process was about. So I had to scramble around today a little bit and do a little bit of digging and get some information. But I do have some questions. I know my time is limited, so I have 3 questions, but one general question, and I want to frame this in a way that is it's just for the sake of getting a feel for where you are with this whole process. I've heard what the proposal is. I'm not anti-business, I'm for business. I think better is better. Certainly I can appreciate what's happened with Meyer and some of the other businesses. And I'm not here to rail against that at all. I think it's important for our city to develop and progress, and this is positive. But I do have some concerns, and my one question is a general one. Has anyone here been on site actually to see the property in question and its position relative to my property and my neighbor's property? You don't have to say yes or no. I pose that as a rhetorical question. Because the reason why I ask that question is because when you put eyes on the property, you get a chance to feel what it's like to have my property and her property butt up against this particular lot. When I sit on my back porch, I can look across my lot into that said property over to Mama Gazzardi's, and so now with this rezoning, I'm not exactly sure what that's going to look like. So that's the question. Have you been on site to actually look at the site? Have you seen what it looks like and what's entailed there? So here's the first question: drainage, watershed, and flooding. How will this be addressed? We lived through the 100-year flood 3 years ago. It was a terrible mess. In fact, I just put in my backyard, I shoveled 7 yards of topsoil, seeded it, put straw on it, and then we had the storm. So you can imagine how discouraged I was after all that work. But that lot flooded, as it did with Brianna, my neighbor's lot. It flooded. So if you've been out there, you know that this is a terrible situation for drainage, because the property, as you go west, slopes downwards. And our property, her property, becomes a place where water collects. Now, they mitigated their situation by arranging Magic, I think it was, or somebody to come in and put a drainage and tie it into the sewer, because there was no other way for water to be removed from her property. But she suffered damage from that situation. So my question is, how will this be addressed? I have no idea who the buyer is, if you have a buyer, if there's a contingency plan, or what's going on right now. But that is certainly a concern. Whether it'll be a parking lot, I understand the residential, I understand about putting a house there. I knew perfectly well what we were getting into when we bought that property 4 years ago. But now this kind of changes the game. The contours are now changing. So that's my first question. How's that going to be addressed? Because that's going to be a huge challenge in terms of how do you get rid of the water that collects in that area. So that whoever buys the property, whoever plans to develop it, better be ready to spend a lot of money, because I suspect it's going to cost a lot of money to do that. Second of all, and I think you would appreciate it, if you were in my shoes, would not the question be home value? This is a retirement home for me and my wife. Will my home decrease in value because of this proposed change? You have no answer to that question because you're not realtors. I have no idea. But anytime that changes, I've got to think about a potential buyer who comes and looks over the property, and for the sake of discussion, if it's a parking lot, that person can very easily be dissuaded from purchasing the property. And I might have a hard time selling it. I don't know. I can't predict it. But that's a question that we have as residents and living there where we do. And then the third question, and feel free to answer these and bring some clarification, because that's what I'm here for. I'm not here to be angry or anything like that. I just need clarification, because this really came as a surprise to me. Privacy, that's the other issue. Whether the property will be used for parking or whatever means it is, what's the privacy considerations? If you have a builder to come in and take that property, I understand the packaging, I understand what that's all about. But I'm still trying to understand what value that piece of property would be for those 4 homes that are already been designated for commercial. What does that serve? So these are the questions that I'm posing, and I'm just wondering, can I get some feedback tonight, some clarification? Because I am concerned. I didn't expect this to happen. It took me by surprise. It took Brianna by surprise. And I have grandkids that like to come and visit, like to play in the backyard, and she's got 3 kids as well. So these are her concern and my concern this evening, and what can you do to allay our fears and concerns about this?
Okay,
So that's,
thank you.
I'm done.
I'll,
My 5 minutes? Who brings the
well, no, that's fine. You can
Who
stay,
brings the 5-minute bill?
you can stay there and we'll,
There's 3 questions.
I can try to answer
Are they
some.
simple questions?
Yeah, I can try to answer some of these, and then if I don't have the answers, we'll defer to maybe people that will. I've been by the site. I know exactly where it is. I've been by that site a million times before this came across. I mean, as soon as I saw it come in the inbox, I'm like, oh, I know.
You're the guy that appeared on my security.
I know exactly where this is at. So yes, I'm kind of familiar with the area. The water issues, this has been an issue that's come up in the past many times at our meetings. I would say much more so with residential properties than commercial properties, because commercial properties are held to a higher standard for water management.
Right.
So if this goes through and a business were to go in, or even the businesses, any business that could go in with these properties along Main Street, they have to adhere to a standard that a residential lot would not have to adhere to. Meaning, any water that's landing on that site cannot leave that site within a certain time period.
Right.
So from that point of view, in my experience professionally, also with our board here, is that a commercial property, you should not have a concern with a commercial property and water drainage. If it is a problem, that means something wasn't done right and it would be fixed.
Right. I'm sure the standards are.
They're a lot higher.
Residential situation, so I get that.
Yeah.
And by the way, let me just say, props to Jamie here, because when I got the letter Monday night, I called him on the phone. Within 10 minutes, he called me back.
Yeah.
And that meant a lot to me. That really impressed me, because it showed concern. And again, let me reiterate, when I come home from work, I read a letter like that, I'm troubled.
Sure.
Because I don't feel like I've had enough time to prepare to understand exactly what's going on. But Jamie, thank you so much. I just want to go on record and say thanks to him for helping me out anyway. So continue.
So yes, I would say, if it were be developed as a business site, the water situation would improve drastically.
That's what Jamie said to me on the phone.
So
if I can elaborate on that, Eric,
yes, sure.
under current Ohio EPA law, as it currently sits as a residential lot less than 1 acre, to what you alluded to earlier, there are no stormwater regulations they have to comply with. They could mound up the land. Someone could build a house, mound up the land, and pour all the water onto the back neighbor's property if they wanted to. But as a commercial property, that triggers under state law jurisdiction for Stark County Soil and Water Protection District. And so any redevelopment that occurs not only has to get building permits through the city, but also has to get stormwater permits from Stark Soil and Water. And so to your point, they would be required to capture all the rain that falls on their property and hold it on their property for roughly 15 hours. There's some variation to that, but roughly 15 hours. And when it's discharged, it has to be discharged into an approved public storm sewer system. So it can't be discharged onto the neighbor's property.
Correct.
I
And,
understand.
and then also, just to piggyback onto that, since these parcels combined are over an acre, that would trigger, I believe some EPA involvement at that point.
The SWIP, yep.
So, try to alleviate your concerns with the water. I would think it would actually
You're
improve.
just kind of repeating what Jamie
Yeah.
had already told me on the
Yeah.
phone, so I get that. On
Then,
to the second question, which you probably cannot answer. I actually called a local realtor to kind of find out what would happen in the case that got developed. It sounds like it's going to happen, be it a parking lot or something else. Just where we stand real estate-wise, because that is a concern.
sure.
And it's a concern for Brianna as well.
And then the issues along those lines, you had mentioned, if it's a parking lot or privacy. If this was to be developed commercially, those plans would have to come back through the city, have to come in front of this commission. And not only would it have to meet the guidelines in place for the Main Street North zoning, but then also the commission can also make consideration to say, look, you're next to a residential user, we need to provide more privacy than even the code says, and suggest that to the user. So I don't want you to, we don't want you to think that, oh, somebody can just come in and do whatever they want. They have to come in, they have to apply to the city, they have to meet the standards set forth. And most likely, it would probably come in front of this commission again for their development and what they're going to do.
Well, it's a personal preference, understand this when I say this. I would rather not look out the backyard at a parking lot.
Understood.
And would anybody
Yeah.
here like to have a parking lot in our backyard? To look out in the evening? I don't. But what can I do? I'm just a citizen. I can't fight this or, whatever. But I can voice my concern about it. And like I said, it's a place where we live. I enjoy the backyard. I work hard at improving it. And it's hard enough to look at Mama Gazzari's brick building in the back there, but that's okay. So that's pretty much where I'm at with this whole matter, and I want to be respectful and just let you know that I appreciate your taking the time to listen to my concerns this evening. So, did you want to ask me any questions at all about anything?
Yeah, I'd like to know what lot you're actually on. I've got a,
213, it's
Do you
the
have a plat map?
second one,
Yeah.
it's this one right here.
Can I approach the,
yes,
when I call approach the bench, I'm not in.
so your property's right here.
Yeah, that's it right there. So this is the, I had, Bruce Connery's a personal friend of mine with Buckeye Surveying, and I had the lot surveyed. Would that be these two right here? Can you see?
Yeah, it's this
Yes.
one, this one.
These
Yes.
two. So this is mine and Brianna's property right here then, right? We're talking
Okay.
about.
Okay, yep.
Okay. What is the dimension of this property? Oh, right here, it is 90, what?
It's 53.73
This is the
feet
back end of
back.
mine, right here, okay.
And
So
your
this is
length
what
is
we're talking about
201.
here. Yeah, this I got. I'm just trying to, okay, so I know nothing about this stuff, but I'm having a hard time understanding what do you do with that small slice of property? I just don't, I can't figure that out
Well,
because,
it really becomes one
It's all one,
one property.
it's all one.
So
Correct.
the
so I'm
development-
having a hard time visualizing what you're talking about.
Do we have that diagram? Do we have a zoomed out diagram of, yeah, there we go. The map overlay. If you can you zoom in on that just a little bit? So that is the parcel we were discussing, but also to the east along Main Street, the abutting parcels
Yeah.
are, so it would become, in theory, all that zoning would be the same as Main Street, but those parcels would be potentially combined into one bigger parcel.
And that's what we hope to, a developer, part of this was part of the land banking for the city of North Canton. We're so locked on green space that if a developer wanted to come in and needed a significant amount, that's why we put all these together.
Trust me, I understand the philosophy behind this and the logic behind it. I'm not here to debate that. I'm just simply saying, as a result of that planning committee, as a citizen living here, it does encroach on privacy issues, safety issues, other kinds of issues. And that was the reason why I asked about, have you visited the site?
Yeah.
Because if you did, you could see the back of my house.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the things that I'm concerned about. I'm done, and then you want to speak, Brianna? Again, thank you so much for your time. If you'd like a copy of these questions right here, I'll be glad to give you a copy.
Well, to give you some ease, if and when it ever did get developed,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear a word you said.
if and when it ever got developed,
Yes,
it's going to come back through the planning
well,
commission.
that's what Eric said, yes.
And the city has rules that protects residents with a commercial application.
Yeah,
So we have rules that will require things like landscaping to buffer properties, so residential to a general business.
right.
There's rules to provide like a fencing approach.
Right,
So they're going to have to bring it back to the city, go through these meetings, and you would be called or sent another, certified email or a letter
Yes.
asking you to come, and that's, you really want to speak your opinion at that, because this planning commission does listen
I'm
to the
sure you do.
residents.
yeah,
So,
I'm sorry.
if that, hopefully it gives you a little comfort there.
A little bit. I'm just still trying to figure out what the advantage is purchasing that property.
It's
I
to
do
combine
not-
it with the other ones, and they're,
I hear that, I just
if,
don't.
and that goes back to the stormwater issue. If they were to develop, let's just say you bought one of those small lots on Main Street, the building can only be so big because you have to have somewhere to put all the stormwater.
Yeah.
So, and if the lots are combined, that generates more ability to use that land for the building, parking, and stormwater retention.
But I still have to face the location of it. my
Right,
house. I have those personal concerns.
Sure.
I mean, and I don't want my house devalued because of that. That's not what I
Sure.
expected, And, all right, thank you very much, I appreciate it.
Thank you for your comments.
I do have one comment, though. Since he received the certified mail on Monday, is there any deadline before this meeting takes place?
So on the noticing, the ordinance requires we send out letters via first-class mail 7 days ahead of the meeting. And these notices were placed in the mail as required by the ordinance. Our cutoff time is pretty close. We try to keep the meetings moving along to not delay projects. So our application deadline for Planning Commission is only 2 weeks out. So that gives us about a week to work on everything, get it put together, and then effect the notice required. And in this case, Ms. Holloway did ask that we send her an email, and we did, with that notice as well, in addition to the first-class mail.
Okay, so the city followed the proper guidelines that you're set up to do.
That's correct, and that is to clarify, everyone within 150 foot of the parcel in consideration.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but even site lighting, parking lot lighting would have to be controlled so that there wasn't any light Right, through a photometric study as far as light spread so that it's not going on to neighboring property, specifically residential property.
I'm glad you brought that up because I never thought of that, but that is true. We get
That's a
enough-
requirement.
We get enough light anyway
Yeah.
from Main Street over there, not to mention Woodrow's a thoroughfare for the emergency services, so we get plenty of those lights coming up and down our street. Woo, 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 woo. Okay, well,
And actually, the screening that Mr. Sarah and Mr. Dalpez mentioned would actually probably help your situation in looking at the back of the brick building where Mama Gazzardi's is. So as commercial property, they're required to screen.
okay.
All right. Next, if you'd like to speak,
Yep.
name and address.
Brianna Holloway, 211 Woodrow Street Northwest, North Canton. First question I have is, you said a week for 7 days, is it 7 business days or just 7 days?
The ordinance just says 7 days, yeah.
Because I know, she let me know on December 31st, but the actual letters were postmarked January 2nd. And then we received them on Monday. So technically, I don't know if that's 7 days. But my biggest concern is things that Dan said about flooding on our property and with the flood that happened and things like that. But also, part of our driveway in our yard is actually an easement with those other properties. So that also concerns me because like, as it stands right now, it's just land, you know? And then you guys say like, as it stands as residential, it wouldn't be like looked into for flooding purposes and stuff if someone decided to build on it. But the fact is that there's no road access to it. So you can't, no one could really build on it anyways as a residential property.
Martin, do you have any, I know I asked you offline regarding the 11th Street. But if someone was to build a house there, would that be extended or they would have to, I'm not sure the
11th
mechanisms.
Street already reaches the back property line.
It already reaches the back property line? I didn't know if it quite reached that.
Yeah, I don't think it reaches.
The next parcel is the
next
first one
parcel.
that doesn't touch 11th
Right.
Street.
Because
Right.
that's the reason that the guy that owned the property sold it, was because he couldn't build on it. So,
I doubt that was, I don't know the ins and outs of that, but I doubt that it wasn't because he couldn't build on it. I would have to say it was probably something to do with utilities getting back there at the owner's cost, would be my guess.
Yeah, there is a deeded right-of-way that runs down probably 12 parcels to the west that would be, I believe, the 11th Street extension. So it's what we refer to as a paper street. So there's obviously no street there. So theoretically, that could be developed into a street as the right-of-way does exist for that infrastructure to occur. At this point, there, as I understand, talking with the city engineer, there is no plan specifically to either develop that into a street or vacate. That's the other option, would be to vacate that right of way and turn it into private property, which then could be developed into, in the case of a private residence, it could be a driveway, perhaps, with, we often will refer to that configuration as like a flag lot where you have a small parcel that extends out to the right of way. Our ordinance does require that all parcels have frontage on the street. So there are possibilities of doing that. As it currently is set up, it would have to be right of way. But again, that could be modified. And there is no plan one way or the other to do either. And it really does depend on the development of the properties, as I understand. I hope that helps clarify that.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
It just, from where I stand, like seeing it, it doesn't look like the road reaches that far. Like the road that is there, cause like I walked behind my yard to Mama Gazzardi's before and stuff, and it doesn't seem like the road reaches to that, so.
If you're interested, I do have the GIS on my computer screen here. If I
So if someone bought the lot, Martin, in theory, they could extend a driveway to it, or the city may extend the road to it.
Currently, pavement reaches that lot. It ends in front of that lot.
Ends in front of that lot. So they could connect, so if a residential purchaser were to buy it, they would just connect to the street with a driveway.
Yeah, Mama Gazzardi's back driveway connects like right into the dead end of 11th, which is across the street from this lot. So you'd essentially put the driveway right across from Mama Gazzardi's back driveway.
Right. So someone, yes, could develop as a residential property if they so wanted to.
But yeah, like I said, my other concern is if they lump all these properties together, with the easement that is on our property too. So it kind of affects both the side of our property and behind our property.
Regarding the easement, is that just for your driveway in the front of your?
Yeah, it's part of the driveway, and then I think a little bit of the land in front of our driveway.
Yes, yeah, I'm trying to figure, and I was just trying to look, Martin, at, the ownership of the properties. Because I don't think these properties would affect, that's not
Because one of the properties
encroaching
kind
on
of
your
goes
driveway.
into it. He has like a shed on it right now.
Sorry, we're just trying to look here and see the ownership of which properties here.
It does appear the properties that are being referred to as this development are beyond the driveway.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So the properties that the city owns, the improvement corporation, those do not reach your driveway. The first two lots at the corner of Woodrow and Main. So the lot that is at the corner of Main and Woodrow, and then the next lot to the north, those are not owned by the city.
Right.
It is the third lot to the north that is owned by the city, and that is beyond your driveway, so that would not have that easement on it.
Can I see?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah,
It shows it here.
yeah, so these two lots, the first two lots are not part of the city's property. It's the third lot off of
Right.
Woodrow. And so your driveway is
I
only,
was told that the easement, okay, like right here. Okay, so it's theirs.
yeah,
Okay.
correct, yeah. I think there's an easement that runs along all the properties, but I think that's an Ohio Power easement or something.
I was told it was because.
So there's a vacated alley
Okay, yep,
that runs along there, and so it appears that her driveway is what's left of the alley, and
Gotcha.
that's why it overlaps. For the rest of where the driveway doesn't exist, the only remaining easements would be by state law, vacated roadways maintain utility easements, so power company, cable company, gas company.
correct. Thank you, Mr. Young.
And I'd also like to say too, I know some people already know, but we actually had a mining incident at our property. So that also concerns me a little bit. with development of the other properties. So,
Was it a mine or was it a septic tank?
well, they found a septic tank, but the septic tank was 10 feet down.
Okay.
And they still found mining remnants. So they're still doing an investigation. The mine subsidence insurance or whatever is gonna do 2 exploratory digs in the front of our property and the back of our property.
Which
Um,
involves me.
But
Yeah.
that's just, because the closest mapped mine is 1/2 mile from our property.
Correct.
So, just another concern.
Sure.
Is that,
Hey,
lot
yeah,
of
we
things-
live in an area with a lot of mines that are
Right.
unmarked and we don't know where they are. We run
Right.
into it all the time.
but just a concern, with developing on the properties and stuff. And me and my husband have talked about it multiple times and how, it would be nice if the land that you guys wanna turn into, make it all one big thing, would be like a community garden or something like that. We would be willing to buy the property back and turn it into a community garden. So it wouldn't have to turn into some commercial property. So, that's all I wanted to say.
No, thank you. Thank you for your concerns and your thoughts. Any other members from the public like to speak at this time? Any other questions, comments from commission members? No? Okay. Well, at this time, if there's no other comments or questions or comments from the city before we,
But the only thing I'd like to add is, I think what Mr. Sarah's alluded to too, is by us controlling the land, we can control the project. And something, whatever comes before the planning committee, it gives us that control over it versus having another, entity owning that, and the city has no control over it other than what comes before the planning commission. If you follow what I'm trying to say, by us controlling the land, we can hopefully control the project that will come forward to make it beneficial for our community, for that area. So,
okay,
I just thought that, just to share that thought there, that I think we have good safeguards and protection for our businesses that are located next to residences, especially the example with Conrad's Tire. The commission was very considerate about lighting and sound because there's a little house right next to it, just on the west side. And they came before the commission, expressed their concerns about the safety and protection, because I think that was for a mother who, that's her home, and that was where she wanted to stay, but the safeguards were put in place. So I would like to think that the same thinking would go into consideration for whatever business or commercial development or what item might come before the commission to be built there.
correct.
And I would add, if I could, just to build on the mayor's point, that in addition to everything that he and Mr. Young said remotely, that because in this case, we're accepting the North Canton Community Improvement Corporation's accepting proposals. So in this case, we really even have another layer of review because the Community Improvement Corporation can choose to reject proposals. So we may have, this is just hypothetical, if we had 3 developers submit proposals, we might, the Community Improvement Corporation might decide, none of these are a good fit, or maybe only one of these. As a condition of the sale, they could even have certain requirements about screening or buffering and so forth, even before that comes to the planning commission. So I just wanted to add that as well, that there's really even an additional set, I think, of review that maybe normally doesn't isn't part of a project that might ultimately come before the planning commission.
Thank you, Jason.
I guess I want to just reiterate one thing. You know, the planning commission is a non-paid commission. We are here, and the reason we are here is to represent the citizens of North Canton. So I believe all of us here takes this very seriously. So whatever ends up happening in the future will be, as long as I've been here on this, I don't know how many years it's been now, but we will look at it very seriously. And we have the guidelines set up to protect the citizens of North Canton. So when there is a developer and a plat comes in front of us, we will be inviting you and we will seriously discuss it.
Exactly. Thank you, Mr. Sarah. Okay, if there's no other comments or questions, I would entertain a motion on this agenda item. I need to find the number. Okay.
So I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 01-2025.
Okay, we have a motion for Mr. Sarah for ordinance 01-2025. I will second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. Mahelson?
Yes.
Mr. Dalpes?
Yes. Okay, thank you. And just one comment for our public that may not understand the process. The planning commission makes their recommendation and then it does go to council. So you will have an opportunity at council if you would like to speak in regards to this matter as well. So I just want to just bring that up for anyone in the public.
If I have a question, can I speak to anybody here, one-on-one about any questions, or do I have to wait till the next meeting to address questions?
At this point,
Until I talk to James?
I would talk to your council members, yes, yes. Okay, next on the agenda, ordinance 02-2025, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of North Canton to reclassify one parcel in the city of North Canton in accordance with the amendment procedure set forth in chapter 1182 of the Planning and Zoning Code from its existing classification to General Business B. Okay. Jason? Are you speaking on this again?
I was gonna defer to Mr. Ellsworth, but I can give you a quick
Yes.
overview if you would like.
Yes, we'll start with you, please.
Okay. I didn't want to steal his thunder.
That's okay.
Yeah, this is another zoning change. This property, and I'm sure Mr. Ellsworth will give a lot more detail and certainly about his plans for the property if the amendment is approved, but this parcel is adjacent to his other property, which is in Plain Township. This particular parcel is in the city of North Canton. It does have existing home that the petitioner owns. He's got a great business, which we're very supportive of at City Hall. And he's interested in potentially expanding the business in terms of commercial use, and I'm sure he'll get into details of the layout and how it relates to his other buildings and so forth. But this parcel, because it is in the city, right now it's zoned R70, and from the city administration standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, given that his other properties are commercial use, to rezone this property, which you may see on the map is kind of landlocked anyway, to rezone it for general business. So we are supportive of that and would recommend that you consider the rezoning.
Okay, thank you. All right. At this time, anyone from the public like to speak on this issue? Name and address, please, and feel free.
Hello, I'm Jim Ellsworth. Our address is 1607 East Maple Street.
That's a business.
That's our business address. My wife and I own Ellsworth Auto Body. Our lot at 1607 East Maple Street was acquired by my father 75 years ago. We've been there ever since. The lot directly to the north of us that we've acquired was part of the original lot when my dad purchased it. So it was all one at one time in 1950. We've now acquired it. It's a landlocked piece of property that had original right-of-way across the front lot, which we own. We are just trying to expand our business, put up an additional building, and continue to grow. That's basically the gist of it. The property owners around it were either us or Walsh University.
Okay,
Questions?
thank you. Yes, at this time, questions from commission members?
So currently, it is residential,
Yes,
R70.
yes.
And it would then, you're asking for it to become then general business,
Correct.
which matches the other 3 parcels that you have right in that area.
Yes.
Okay.
The other parcels are in Plain Township.
Would the residence that's behind your business right now at the front of this said property continue to exist, or?
No,
Okay.
no. So where we're proposing, we would take down that dwelling and put up a new building.
Okay.
Right now, nobody lives in the property or anything like that either.
Okay.
Do we need to condition anything on that house being removed? I mean, can you grandfather a house in, or how do you address that residential home being on a commercial property?
Martin?
So the home would become a non-conforming use, so there would be some limitations on improvements and restrictions on rebuilding. We don't have a mechanism to place any conditions on the zoning amendment. However, the zoning code will address that inherently.
Anyone else in the public like to speak on this matter? No? Any other comments from city officials?
I think it would be a wise move to assist this business that's been established here for over 75 years
Okay.
and accommodate the growth that you'll bring to that one section of our community / Plain Township.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, if there's nothing else from the public, would entertain a motion from commission members.
I would motion to approve as submitted.
Second.
We have a motion from Mr. Milhausen, a second from Mr. Sarah. Let's call to vote, please.
Mr. LePage?
Yes.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Sarah?
Yes.
Mr. Mahelson?
Yes.
Mr. Dalpays?
Yes. All right, thank you. And I think that brings us to the end of our agenda items tonight. I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
I will second.